Welcome dear students. This is third video under unit 2, which is spectroscopic techniques and applications. In this video, I'm going to discuss about the microwave spectroscopy. This frequency, wavelength, energy and wave number values one must remember. And we have seen in the previous video that the electromagnetic spectrum consists of various types of radiations in which the radio frequency radiations are of least energy, and then the microwave. And the microwave spectroscopy or the microwave radiation has less energy comparing to the other radiations other than the radio waves, and its energy varies from 10 to 10 power 3 joules per moles, and its wavelength is varying from 1 centimeter to 100 micrometers, and the frequency varies from 3 into 10 power 10 to 3 into 10 power 12 hertz, and the wave number is 1 to 100 centimeter inverse. This energy is sufficient to transform a molecule from lower rotational energy level to the higher rotational energy level. So hence we can call the microwave spectroscopy as the rotational spectroscopy also. And we are going to study uh, the different types of transitions and the energy calculation selection rule. Before that, let's discuss the mechanism of microwave spectroscopy. The major criteria for the microwave spectroscopy is that the molecule should have the charge separation, dipole, means it should be a polar molecule like HCl. If you take a molecule, homodiatomic molecule like hydrogen, nitrogen, we don't have any charge separation for them, so that there is no dipole moment. And then hence we can consider such type of molecules with no permanent dipole as microwave inactive. And we are considering the major criteria for the molecule to exhibit the microwave spectroscopy is that they should have permanent dipole. The molecule should be polar. And if you consider such type of molecule, HCl, I took here an example of HCl where H is represented with a plus symbol and Cl is represented with a minus. And this is about the rotation. So naturally a molecule will have some rotations. If you consider the direction of rotation is in this direction clockwise, and the dipole is a vector quantity, it has magnitude and the direction of the dipole is downward, just directed towards a negative charge. So if I plot a graph to the vertical component of the dipole with the time, we are considering the rotation of a HCl molecule, and we plot graph to the vertical component of the dipole to time. So when this is rotated, after some time, it just reaches this position where the vertical component is in this direction. And then if I just continue the rotation of the molecule, now the dipole moment is upward, and then it is rotated, it just sideways, and then when it continue rotating in the same direction, it become downward, and then again it is in a sideways manner. So if you plot that graph, if you plot that points and connect them, you get a sine wave here in the form of a sine wave. So you can observe that it also has frequency. The rotating molecule has some frequency with which it is rotating. Whenever it is irradiated with a radiation, as we have discussed in the previous video that the electromagnetic radiation has two components, electric and magnetic. Here, the frequency of electric component of electromagnetic radiation and the frequency of rotating molecule, when both are in resonance with each other, then the absorption will take place, and either it can undergo transition from lower to higher or from higher to lower. There will be some transition between the molecules whenever there is a resonance between the frequency of a rotating molecule and the frequency of the irradiated radiation. So as we are focusing on the rotation, of a molecule, we should consider another term called inertia. When a molecule can rotate in any direction, I'll show you rotation. There are different possibilities of rotation. We'll discuss further. But we consider the rotating molecule. The molecule can rotate in any direction. It can be X, Y, or Z. So for that, we basically take inertia of a molecule. Inertia is nothing but the resistance which opposes the movement, the rotation of that particular body, that particular molecule, that is inertia, and which is equal to mr square, the mass and the radius square. So this inertia of we can consider for a molecule in order to study the rotation of a molecule. So the rotation can be in any direction. So we take three basic criteria into consideration. That is, the molecule can rotate along the bond axis. For suppose this is a molecule, this is one end as one atom, another end as another atom. It is a bond. So this is a bond axis. If the molecule is rotated along the bond axis like this, this is IA. And another thing is end over end rotation in the plane. For suppose this is my plane and the molecule is like this. One end here, one end is here, and the other one atom is here and the other atom is here. And if this is rotating like this end over end within the plane, this is called IB. And if this end over end rotation but out of plane, means if the molecule is like this and it is rotating like this is end over end only but out of plane. This is considered as IC. So the molecule, based on the inertia exhibited in when a molecule is rotated along the bond axis or end over end in plane and out plane, based on the inertia exhibited by the molecules, molecules are classified into four categories. That is linear molecule, symmetric tops, spherical top molecules, and asymmetric top molecules. Let's discuss one by one. The linear molecules. Let's take the linear molecule. Here just for an example, I took this oxygen and nitrogen, but both are NMR inactive. But let's take HCl, which is a linear, or this OCS. So this type of linear molecules, if you rotate it, first suppose consider this is HCl. This here I have H and here I have Cl. I just rotate it like this, means along the bond axis. Obviously, the position of hydrogen and chlorine will not change. So the inertia exhibited by that molecule is almost negligible, is almost equal to 0. Whereas if I rotate a molecule end over end out of plane or end over end in plane, the inertia will not be equal to 0, because when I rotate like this, hydrogen position, in the hydrogen position chlorine will reach and hydrogen will move to the other end. So for this end over end rotation, the inertia is not equal to 0. The molecule has to exhibit some inertia that both in plane or out plane, both will be equal to each other. That IB is equal to IC and IA can be equal to 0. Such type of molecules are considered as a linear molecule. And symmetric top molecules. The symmetric top molecules will have an inertia. Let's take an example of this. CH3F. CH3F, it is the bond axis. You can observe the hydrogens are arranged like this. One is in plane towards the observer and one is away from the observer. When we consider this fluorine as the bond axis, the center of gravity lies in between these two, and so that if I rotate holding the fluorine and try to move it, then the molecule will be experiencing some inertia because the hydrogen positions are varying. Though we are making it to rotate along the bond axis, the positions of hydrogen will vary, so that the inertia will not be equal to 0 along the bond axis, means IA not equal to 0. Then another thing is, when I rotate end over end, means the fluorine comes downward and 3 hydrogens moves upward. That end over end rotation also have some inertia, but which is not equal to Ia. So for symmetric top molecules, I can consider IB is equal to IC, which is not equal to Ia, where Ia even not equal to 0, because there is some inertia exhibited by that molecules because these three hydrogens changes their position. And again, based on whether Ia is greater or IBIC is greater, we have two types of symmetric top molecules. One is called prolates and the other one is called oblate. So the prolate example is here CH3F, and oblate example you can take as a BCl3 or BF3 or C6H6. The spherical top molecules are having the inertia in all the directions same. That is, Ia is equal to Ib is equal to Ic. You can simply say C60 buckyball is the best example, CH4 even SiH4. These are all having same inertia in all the direction. When you rotate the molecule along the bond axis or end over end, in plane or out plane, inertia will be same. Such type of molecules are spherical top molecules, and asymmetric top molecules where the inertia along the axis, end over end in plane, end over end out plane, all are not equal to each other. Such type of compounds or molecules are called as asymmetric top molecules. There's water, and then this is CH2 double bond CHCl. These are the best examples for asymmetric top molecules. Let's come to the derivation part, the energy levels of rotation, different rotational energy levels, what is its energy and whether it is quantized or not. That let's discuss that part now. The rotational spectra of rigid diatomic molecule. Let's take a rigid diatomic molecule. I mentioned one thing, that the molecule should have polarity. So obviously I took HCl here. This larger in size is considered Cl minus and this as H plus. You can take M1 and M2. M1 is greater than M2. So obviously the center of gravity will lie near to the M1 and the radius is R. Consider the distance between these two is R. Bond length is R, sorry. And so where R is equal to, at the center of gravity, from the center of gravity, the distance towards the M1 is considered as R1, and from center of gravity, the distance towards the M2 is considered as R2. So this R equal to sum of R1 plus R2. So the molecule is rotating end over end rotation about C-axis, center of gravity, where at center of gravity you can calculate M1 R1 is equal to M2 R2. The product of mass and radius for one atom equal to the mass and radius or the bond length for other atom from at the center of gravity will be equal to each other. And the moment of inertia I is defined as m1r1 square plus m2r2 square, because inertia is generally a sum of mass and radius square. So here I have diatomic molecule, so I consider two terms, that is m1r1 square plus m2r2 square. I can write this equation as, instead of since m1r1 is equal to m1r2, I can write this as m1r2r1 plus m1r1r2. So I can take common r1r2, so I'll get m1 plus m2. So I is equal to r2r1 into m1 plus m2. So if you just consider first and second equations, we can calculate the r1 and r2 from here by substituting any one, like R1 instead of R1 or instead of R2, I can take R0 minus R1, because R0 is equal to R1 plus R2. So instead of R2, I'm just substituting this R0 minus R1, from which upon simplification, simply I'll get R1. R1 is equal to M2 R0 by M1 plus M2. And similarly, you can substitute instead of R1 as R0 minus R2, and then you'll get the R2 value, which is M1 R0 by M1 plus M2. So R1, R1, R2 values, you got it now. So then if you substitute in the equation, you will get inertia is equal to R1, R2 into M1 plus M2, where R1 and R2 values are, we got here in the from the calculation, and substitute that M2 R0 by M1 plus M2 into M1 R0 by M1 plus M2 into M1 plus M2. So you will get, this 2 will get cancelled, and then what you will get is M1 M2 R0 square by M1 plus M2, where this M1 M2 by M1 plus M2 is called as reduced mass. That is represented with the symbol mu. So I can write I is equal to mu into R0 square. This is the inertia of a molecule. By the Schrodinger equation, the solutions of the Schrodinger equation will give us the different energy levels, and for a diatomic molecule, the rotational energy level is given with the formula that h square by 8 pi square I into j plus 1. Here h is a Planck's constant, I is the inertia, J is the energy, and J is a rotational quantum number. And the rotational quantum number can be varies from 0 to any number. And in rotational spectroscopy, we use wave number. The energy can be even represented in terms of wave number. So we know the relation between wave number and the energy, that so that we can use that relation. E is equal to h nu, or E is equal to hc by lambda, which is equal to hc nu bar. So we can convert that. If we want to express this energy in terms of wave number, nu bar is equal to E by hc. Energy which is represented in joules by hc, you will get the equation h by 8 pi square Ic into j plus 1. This is represented in terms of centimeter inverse, or in terms of wave number. Or else I can simply represent this h by 8 pi square Ic for a given molecule. This is constant. So that we can represent this term as capital B, and that B is a rotational constant for a given molecule. B is a constant value, and so that you will get the wave number in terms of centimeter inverse equal to Bj into j plus 1 centimeter inverse. So here the j values I told you, I mentioned already that j is a rotational quantum number. It can vary from 0 to any number. Let's consider if j is equal to 0. The formula what you got is Bj into j plus 1. Substitute in that equation, you will get 0 B centimeter inverse. If it is 1, j is equal to 1, you will get 2b. If j is equal to 2, you will get 6b. If j is equal to 3, you will get 12. If 4, 20. If 5, 30, and so on. Means you can observe the first energy level, the first rotational energy level with j is equal to 0, just have 0 b energy, 0 b centimeter inverse wave number, and the next level is 2b, and next 6b. The gap between the successive energy levels are increasing as we move on to from lower to higher j values. The gap is increasing. Okay, now we calculated the energy. Then what about the transition? What type of transitions are allowed and what are forbidden? And here the selection rule for the rotational spectroscopy is delta J is equal to plus or minus 1. 1 means if the molecule is there at 1, J is equal to 1 level, it can either move to the 2 or it can move to the 0 level. Here plus or minus symbols represents, plus represents absorption, means excitation, minus represents coming back to the ground state, means emission of radiation, is represented with the negative symbol. So molecule, if it is there in one level, it can excite to the next immediate next level. That's all. So if you calculate the energy gap that required for transition. If a molecule is undergoing transition from J is equal to 0 to 1, how much energy it requires is 2b centimeter inverse. So if that absorption is done, you'll get a peak at 2b. If a molecule is there at J is equal to 1 and it tries to move to the J is equal to 2, then the energy gap between those two levels is equal to 4b and you'll get the peak at 4b. And you can calculate for further what you will get. If you commonly apply this, if a molecule is there at J and it wants to jump to J plus 1, then you can calculate it. Initially J is equal to J and it just wants to jump to the next level, which is J plus 1. I'm considering here the absorption. So if I try to calculate the delta E, means the difference between the energy of that two levels, J and J plus 1 level, I can substitute Bj into J plus 1 is the formula. So one level is J plus 1. So J plus 1 into J plus 1 plus 1 minus J level means Bj into J plus 1. So if you simplify this, I'll get B into J plus 1, J plus 2 minus Bj into J plus 1. So you can take this into consideration, or you can take this term common, that B into J plus 1. Here also I have B into J plus 1 term common. So if I take this term common, just ignore this line, J plus 1. So I have what I have in the first term, I got J plus 2 minus J. So this J and this J get cancelled, and what left is 2B into J plus 1 centimeter inverse. So if a molecule wants to transform from one level to the other level, that energy will be equal to 2B into J plus 1 level. Here I just represented the transition from one level to the other level. If a molecule is there at this level, we just try to jump here. So the gap is 2B, so I'll get a peak at 2B. If 1 to 2, it is transition is from 1 to 2, then the gap between these two levels is you will get a peak at 4B, and then at 6B, and then at 8B, and then at 10B. So depending on the gap between these energy levels, the respective peak you will get. If a molecule wants to transform from 4 to 5, the gap is 10B, so I'll get a peak at 10B. So from that information, we will get peak like this. We will get peaks in the spectrum like this at a particular wave number. So from that peak, what do we know? We can determine the structural information about the gaseous molecule, and we can know the bond length of the gaseous polar molecule, and inertia, moment of inertia can be calculated, and even dipole moment can also be known. But this spectroscopy has some limitations also, that it is applicable only to the molecules with permanent dipole moment. That is a basic criteria I told you. There should be polarity in a molecule so that it can exhibit the polarity and the rotation, and then we can run that molecule in gaseous state to get the spectrum. So if the molecule is not in the gaseous state, then it is not free to move, so that we can't apply this rotational spectroscopy for such type of compounds also. And even it is difficult to study the larger molecules by this technique. It is applicable for smaller molecules only. These are the limitations. I will discuss the IR spectroscopy in next video. Thank you.